live. Hello, everybody. Come on in. Come on
How's
in.
it going?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's
Sarah,
a Friday.
you're out of town right now.
I
How's
am.
it going?
I'm like really out of town too. For anybody who hasn't been like watching my random comments and things on Twitter, I am currently in Germany,
Very, very
like
far.
really very, very far out of town. Which was not like I mean, it was on purpose, but it was not expected. Earlier this year, I don't know if you saw this post. I was very, very lucky enough to retire my husband because
Yeah,
business is going well. Like we were kind of at that spot where it was like, go big or go home, I guess. Like we're just gonna see where this goes. So we retired him, which was great because I don't know, man. I'm kind of optimizing for location independence this year.
okay.
Like I
Like
just want to be able
full
to go
nomad, you can
places.
be like traveling Asia, or are we going like how extreme are we
My
going?
gosh. I'm trying to go to places that it's easy to take children, which is more difficult than you would think. So yes, I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old. And we're just at that point where it's like, I think we're ready, like for
Yeah,
kids to travel. And it's been okay. It's
yeah.
not great yet, but it's okay. We're doing all right. So for
Yeah.
anybody who's in here who travels with kids, props to you because it is intense. But the trip has been lovely. Germany is great. I don't know how many. I mean, comment if you guys have been to Germany before because I'm in Cologne right now and it is gorgeous.
Really?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful out here. PA people are coming in. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited you guys join us on a Friday. I know Fridays are like end of week and it's always really like, oh gosh, more learning, more intense stuff. But I'm also hoping that sometimes with these live sessions, you just get to like tune out a little bit, turn off, and just like kick back and watch some people like do creative strategy work. So come on in, everybody. We're doing creative strategy stuff today. Colby, do you want to introduce yourself to people who may or may not know who you are yet?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Colby Flood. I own an agency called Brighter Click, located out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, I am. Our team's remote international. So we specialize. Started out as a paid media agency and have done what most have, which is transitioned into creative strategy and creative production over the past 2 to 3 years. And that's what we'll be talking about today: is creative strategy and all the great work behind it.
This is my favorite conversation because I think over the past like 3 or 4 years, people got really used to this like term creative strategy, but it still seems like it's morphing. I don't know if you guys have seen
Mhm.
this, but like it started out as one thing and now it's something completely different. So if you're a media buyer or if you're like a brand operator or if you've got like any experience with brands in general and marketing, creative strategy has become one of those words that I wouldn't put it in buzzword kind of like form yet, but it's getting there because I think people just don't quite know what to do with it. So we're going to do basically like a live generation of a creative strategy this Friday so that we can show you guys a little bit about like how Colby does it and how his team does it, mostly because I've worked with you for a very long time. You're very talented. Your team is very talented.
Thank
I
you.
also want to show you guys how you can apply some psychology to what you're already doing to kind of inject a little bit, what's the word, like boost, right? Like fuel into what you're doing, especially on the creative strategy side. So we have a brand that's going to be joining us today. They're like in a meeting currently. And of course, that's just how D2C is. So they'll be here in just a second. But we're going to look at a brand in skincare. And if you guys saw like the event posting for this, I want to look specifically at skincare because it's one of those industries that it's actually really, really difficult to advertise in and to come up with good creative strategies for, just because like skincare is tight, like it's very saturated.
Mhm.
And so today I kind of want to unpack skincare in particular. This skincare brand is in men's skincare, which is even more intense because men's skincare is no joke. Like it's difficult to market over here into a place where I don't think the consumers are currently, what's the word? They're not habitually using it like women do.
Mhm.
Very different customer
Mhm.
base, very different behavioral set, but I want to show what men actually want from skincare. We're going to talk a little bit about like how to take kind of that emotional resistance to a product that like not everybody's using yet and turn it into kind of more of like a movement for the brand. And then I want to do some kind of creative strategy in real time. So that sounds good to everybody. Kevin and Ben. Hello,
What's going
guys.
on?
Boom.
Ben,
Good
we
to
Um,
be
can't see you,
here.
which is strange.
Skincare is no joke
Huh.
to you, you're right.
It is no joke. Poor Ben's
Let
screen is not
me
working.
see.
That's
Yeah.
okay. I will take you out for 2 seconds until computer decides to work today. Poor Ben.
Poor Ben.
Anyways, I'm super excited to chat with you guys today about this type of stuff though, because men's skincare is an intense industry with lots of very nuanced things happening in it. So to start, do you want to introduce yourself, Kevin, and tell us like what you're building, what you're working on, and then we can kind of do strategy from there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. My name's Kevin. Ben will be joining here shortly. He's my better half. But we're actually building a men's skincare company. Focused on clinical grade skincare, kind of for active guys. Something Ben and I both really struggled with in the past. Ben struggled with acne. I was developed a form of eczema while I was playing a sport in college and didn't really know how to handle it. Like a lot of men, you go to your mom, your sister, they want to give you 5, 10 plus products that is something that we're never going to stick to. And there was never really something, out there that was built with the quality that our dermatologists would back, something that represented us as people, active guys. We wanted to kind of change the game in men's skincare, kind of be the new standard of men's skincare, creating that. What we're saying is 2-step clinical grade skincare for active lifestyles. It's been fun. We've been live for just 3 years. And you two have been a big help for us, but it's been fun. It's definitely a tough space, but we think there's still a lot to do, and the guys have been kind of left in the dust from the overall industry of kind of what we want out of skincare. So
Oh, I love this backstory too, because you have a founder that was the consumer. And this happens, I think, in a lot of industries, but in skincare in particular, it for you guys, I think it's a major benefit. For most founders, I think it's important to have experience of what your customers are experiencing. But in skincare, it's a little different because it's a part of your person. It's a little different if you're like in fashion or if you're, in some sort of other industry where it's wearable, but it's not a part of who you are. Skin is on your body. So it's going to be there at all times. So okay. Walk me through a little bit. So you started out in this brand being the customer yourself because you actually had the experience. How did you come up with the concept for it? Because before we get into like creative strategy, I want to kind of go through a little bit of how we come up with the strategies that we come up with. Because one of the questions that I've been getting a lot lately is like, how do you build a creative strategy? And people are typically not asking me to give them the tactical stuff because they know how to write copy and they know how to like build ads, those type of things. What they're asking for is like, how did you build the system in your head to build ads? So what's your guys' like take on that, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I think and this kind of kicks into a lot of stuff that you guys talk about that has really helped with us. And one thing too, just we really wanted to get inside of like the consumer of who guys are. And that's kind of how we built the product and brand, because we were struggling with this. We both struggled with our own skin issues. There was too many products. Like men are different consumers than women. And the industry was really only focused on women. And even the kind of hyper masculine brands that are out there that didn't represent us, they were kind of still taking the women approach, like too many products. They weren't focused on like, we want different textures, like lightweight textures. We still want quality ingredients, but we want simplicity. So I think a big thing for us was really kind of trying to build that brand and product for who we are as consumers. But men are very, hey, I have a need, versus like women can be a little more emotional. So we kind of started there. But I think the cool thing that you really focus on that, we solve real skin issues, but at the end of the day, guys want to look good too. And we're also emotional. We're also emotional buyers. And I think that's something that we're trying to lean into more. But like from where we started in terms of like your original question of ads, like we really focused on what are our customers' needs, kind of focus on those problem solutions. And that was kind of like the basis of, building the brand, the basis of like kind of the ads, obviously using a lot of brands in the industry. I like to focus on what our consumers, like the other brands that aren't in our industry that our consumers use, and how are they talking to their customer, and kind of pull that into kind of our ads and our brand. And that was kind of like the starting point. But I think we're kind of transitioning now into, we know what works for customers or for men, we know their problem solution, but then how can we take the problem solution and apply that kind of emotional need to it, which is something that, you two, speak a lot about and have really helped us with.
Oh, I love this stuff. And I think a follow-up to that too, just because you, like I said, you guys have good experience of being founders who have run ads. And some founders obviously go into this and build their own creative strategies. And I think hearing your experience is interesting because there was one piece in there that you were like, I think we're to the point where our strategy needs to change. Like we had ABCD at the very beginning where it was problem, solution, pain points, right? We had the foundational work, but we're now seeing that like we need almost like more sophistication inside our creative strategies. So Ben, I have a question for you. What's your experience being the consumer and then being like the marketer? Because I think there comes a point as a founder where it's almost like it's not your job to market anymore, which sounds bad, but it's like now I'm to the point where I need more sophistication and I can either focus on ads and growth or I can shift over to like CEO like level, which is a completely different role. That's something that I'm currently experiencing, which is super crazy hard. So what's your experience of shifting from I was the consumer and I was the marketer and now I'm into like growing a brand? What do you think about that?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, it's like
Okay,
quiet for some
cool.
reason, but yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know why. Yeah, if it's too quiet, I'll either yell or I'll just pull off these AirPods. I'm already yelling most of the time that I'm talking, so my fiance is gonna hate this. Um, yeah, I mean, it's hilarious that you called me a marketer. I couldn't be anything further from the sort. That is all Kevin. But I'll try to answer that through some of that perspective. I think that and you hear this talked about a lot. And again, we're just going to probably dump a ton of kudos on both of you guys because you came to us at the right time to really help us start shifting the way we think about this. Marketers love to talk like marketers, and we all have heard this, and Kevin and I have lived it. I think the transition is when you're a consumer, you don't realize every ad that you click on, every email that you receive, you don't realize the thought that went into that. So you see it and you go, oh, that looks really cool. And then you're like, well, how do I replicate that look? Like that's marketing. Or you go, wow, that offer is really good. What's the offer I'm gonna make for us? But when you're on the brand side and starting to run the company, then you kind of go like, okay, I'm just replicating and I'm doing what I think this means. But until you crack over that path of Sarah, like you, I mean, I remember when I first DM'd you of this, like really lean into psychology and understand the whys behind things. You start to see that a lot of marketing is just marketing. And then good marketing is tapping into the emotions and tapping into the psychology behind things. So I think like that's been the biggest learning. And I think to your point about stages where we've definitely started to find more of our footing. Even someone on Colby's team, Max, who's friggin' amazing at what he does, was walking us through how like, well, that it's, there's that first line of copy, the headline. And he's like, the next thing is I have to make sure that regardless of anything I want to say, that the second line ties to the first line in a
Mhm.
logical, natural way. So something Kevin and you have fallen victim to many times is saying too much. We want to say every single thing that we know about our product in one ad. Starting to really piecemeal together, like what is the main point I'm trying to make? What's needed to support that? What does the customer need to see? And then at the end of all that, saying, wait, do I sound like a marketing intern who's just drafting marketing copy?
Oh, I
Or
feel
do
that.
I sound like a consumer? But then this is the weird thing about what we all do is do I sound like a consumer? And I hesitate to say this, like, is the manipulation or psycho like is the thing there that is needed to take my marketing speak of everything I know about my company and translate it into that, going back to my example as a consumer, that they're just going to see it and be like, oh, this is a good ad, this touches me,
Yes.
yeah, I need this.
Oh my gosh, I
um,
feel that.
so yeah, I guess that's the answer. As it goes to running a brand or scaling a brand, I think for us, what we're figuring out now is how that all ties together is like
Hmm.
there is there is a necessity to do things the right way to survive. And we've burned a lot of money in the past. Other times we've been too conservative. And you have to take a step back from everything that was just said and say, what do we actually need for the business to work and work well? And how do we solve the problems that go into that? And that's what led us to both of you guys. We just we hadn't had it all click yet. We thought we were doing things the right way. We were doing a lot of things the right way, but it's like getting those people who have done it well before to say like, hey guys, let's focus. Let's put a system in place, a process, something repeatable, scalable, and kind of go from there.
I think too
I love
sometimes
that.
like as new founders, like when you're starting out as marketing, Facebook, you can kind of lose who you are because you're just
Mm.
chasing that dollar, that like, hey, we
The
need
data,
sales, like
the numbers.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's funny because like why we started this brand as consumers is kind of how we kicked off, the ads and marketing, but we kind of left that and we're like, well, hey, we gotta find what works. Like I know Colby has talked about us. You're welcome to say our name, but we are this brand that we launched like 300 ads at one point, and we're just like trying to try everything that works. And we kind of got away from why we started the brand, the core message. And I think like now as we're kind of stepping into like, hey, like we need to start centralizing and like actually having some consistently and getting back to who we are and talking to how we want to be as customers, and not really focus on like making actual ads. Like let's make, things that don't feel like ads, things that are actually talking to, how we wanted to as customers, and get back to what we were doing before. Cause you can get lost in this Facebook world.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Sarah.
No. That was good. I was just going to be like, yes, this like snaps for you. Because that's something that I hear from every founder ever, is just like, I don't know how some way, somehow we got over into the weeds where we were launching all these ads and we weren't learning anything. And it was just like, now what do we do? So yes, Colby, I would love for you to speak on this, because you guys have obviously direct experience. You guys are in production, ad production and creative strategy. So what's your take on all this?
Yeah, I think, Sarah, at the beginning of this call, before Ben and Kevin had joined, you said something about kind of the role or the term of creative strategist is evolving, right? And I think that's very true. I think if we look at a media buyer, it's a lot easier to determine if somebody's a senior or a junior media buyer. Like, oh, okay, they're not looking at blended MER to understand how Facebook ads is impacting the whole business, or they're not looking at new customer versus existing customer attribution to understand if we're actually getting a good ROA. Like they're just looking at some metrics at the top level. Creative strategy is such a new service, and it's such a new process that like the expectations of a strategist today are changing. And, at BrighterClick, I personally believe, messaging angles, very important, right? But right now, if you really distill down the creative strategy process as a whole for the industry, not just in this situation that we're talking, it really is voice of customer research, and then come up with some messaging angles and then test them out. And if those don't work, put some more in, test them out, right? We try to go a bit higher level and focus on the business first, and then look at how we can go into like the actual qualitative research, and then come up with our strategies from there. And what that looks like, skincare is a great example. And I won't necessarily give specific strategies that we're doing for Pretty Boy, but let's look at the business as a whole, right? So let's look at seasonality of product. And so what products are selling by what season? Now, if we are talking about Pretty Boy here, SKU count is lower, right? So we are focusing on a core product or a core focus there. But what are the reasons people are buying at different times of the year, right? So skincare in general, wintertime, you have drier skin, you have flakier skin, right? So for skincare, generally, moisturizing is an aspect that you're going after. Come summertime, excess oil, clogged pores, you start to have breakouts from heat and from sweat and things like that. And so knowing that seasonality, knowing the buying patterns of users or of customers is really important to be able to understand what to talk about and when, because I strongly feel that aside from like essential items, essential goods, every product has seasonality, either of buying peak or just of reasons that you're purchasing it that way. So that's where we start. And then we really go into the qualitative data, understanding, for Pretty Boy, an example, eczema is like your core solution that you're going after, right? And so we'll look at understanding what people are talking about across Reddit, across, all the channels. Everybody does this part. And then Sarah, we've adopted from you your bucket system for ads, where you look at, problem solution ads, exploration, evaluation, and then offer ads. And offer doesn't mean discount, it can mean bundled products, those different types of things, and really navigate how we can drive performance throughout the account by moving away from just one. And I think, Kevin, you were talking early on that a lot of your ads, when you were running, they were that like problem solution focus, right? Of like, what is the problem we're solving right now and how can we solve it? And sometimes having an account weighted with just that can cause issues with scalability, but also reliability, because the buying pattern might be super tight, right? When people are having a flare up, they definitely need something right now. And when they don't, they're not as active for it, right? So that's what we've, from a high level, been doing with Pretty Boy, is really focusing on coming in, understanding the business, understanding the customer and the product, and when people are purchasing for what reasons, and then seeing how we can sort of expand out messaging a bit, right? So moving necessarily away from just like eczema related talk to maybe like redness, right? So it's a little bit more general. There's a little bit more TAM there. And then seeing how we can focus on having, I know Max has worked with you on the two-step messaging, I believe, right? Where we're trying to move away from being like a 18-in-1 shampoo, conditioner, body wash, like typical men's meme product, to more of like a quality two-step, simple, but still highly effective type product that way. So this is where I have to tell myself that I'm rambling at this point, but that's kind of a high level of what we've been going through.
It's so fun.
Well, I think
Okay,
like one thing you said, Colby, and Sarah, I'd love your perspective on this for both of you. And this is Colby and his team are doing a great job at this. Is
Shout out, Max.
we're in this weird space where like the whole story of why we started this, Kevin's eczema. Like that's the thing. The product does really good at that because we built it around this one skin condition that like I have to be able to use it every day. Otherwise, like, well, Kevin's not going to sell a product he can't use. And so we do super, super well at that. And we've seen good traction on that. To your point about TAM, we can go into that a little bit later. I guess my question would be like when you've advised brands, Colby, when you've seen other brands come in who like have a clear, let's call it a clear angle that's been somewhat validated. It's definitely not their viral angle. It's not leading them to be $1 billion company yet, but it's there. It's something that's making sense. How do you look at, because we always hear people say niche down, niche down, niche down. So for us, like the obvious thing there would be like, maybe you guys should just be the eczema brand or the redness, or Kevin always says like sensitive skin. But then we talk to customers in our post-purchase surveys. We do customer interviews and they go, I just love that it's so simple. I love how light it is on my face. Like I love, like this is the best product I've ever used. And so I'd love to know how you guys, not specific only to us, look at starting that process of uncovering the different scalable angles and messages that are different than what you've done, but they lean into what, everyone talks about golden nug reviews and leverage your customers. And so I think that's something we're going through the process of now. And it's been a challenge in the past is like how to start uncovering the other thing that you can sell when there's also one thing that you're clearly doing the best at. And sometimes it can feel counterintuitive.
Oh, I love this question. Colby, you want to go first? You want me to go first? Okay. I think it depends on the industry. Obviously, we're talking about skincare today. So one of the things you have to think a lot about, I think, especially at this phase of the business, where you guys are like, we're ready to freaking scale this thing, right? Like we've been doing pretty well for a while. Now we're ready to kind of like upgrade to the next level of revenue, next level of business. One of the things you have to look at for skincare in particular is not just like what you're selling, because you guys have a very simplified system and it's very well formulated, right? So you got good product, but also when you are selling it. Everybody on here thought I was going to say who. No. Who is not nearly as important to me sometimes as when, because in particular, we already know who, men, you guys are the core customers. So it's pretty easy for you to like have that experience, understand their experience. So the situational data is already acquired. We also have like basically problem solution data based upon the fact that we hear all these reviews and comments saying things like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. It works well for my skin. I love the way it feels, right? So we kind of understand what they love about the product. The last piece of this though is always when. So, and this is something that you guys and I have sort of like danced around a little bit, where we've talked about the fact that when would somebody purchase this in their journey? How long have they been experiencing eczema before they actually look for a solution? And then how long after that until they find one? Now, for you guys, from what I can remember when we talked a lot about like deep level customer research, your customers have been experiencing this for a long time. Like they've either had it since their teens or their early college days, or they've just been fighting it for a long time. So that when is really extended. It's possible, especially in skincare and especially for men, that the when actually lasts longer, like past finding a solution, right? And this is the weird part about skincare is you might find something that solves it for a little while and then it stops working. So then you got to start the process of finding the solution again. So skincare is weird. And this is the reason why I put that like in the description on this particular live. I was like, skincare for men is odd because it's like one of the only industries I've seen where the trigger event is repetitive. You won't find one solution and be done forever, right? Now, the interesting part for you guys is you might find a solution that you just love. It solves one specific problem, but maybe not all of them. but it solves enough of my problem that I'm going to keep this now just because I really love the product and I really love the brand. So we got to keep that in mind when we start to message towards your customer type and towards guys in general, is like, you got to make it one of those things where it's easy to get into the brand, because we know that they're product shopping, right? Like hopping
Mhm.
around, trying to figure out what's going to solve this for me. We also know that they find something that works for a while, and then it stops, and then they got to hop to something else. So because this behavior already exists, very important to make it super easy to get into the brand. This is why I love sample sizes, tester products, those types of things for skincare is really important. But also any kind of like offer at the beginning of the brand, and this is where the creative strategy comes in, where they can try it without having any sort of risk. Anytime you can psychologically reduce the risk that you are asking somebody to take on a product they have to put on their skin is ridiculously important because they have to put it on something where it might hurt. It might actually cause physical pain to put that on their skin, especially if there's something in there that they just, their skin doesn't like. So when we talk about like, okay, how do we do that? Like, what do we put in place to actually scale and grow the brand? Very first thing I look at is, do we have a door open to the brand? Not a window, a door. Like, is it huge? Is it super easy for as many people to come in as possible for as many different reasons as possible, not just eczema? This is the reason why I love that Colby called that out, that let's open this up a little bit, make it like a tiny bit more broad. So that way, anybody who doesn't know they have eczema, but know they have red skin, will be able to come into the brand. So very first thing, make it stupid simple for people to come to the brand. Second thing I always like to do before we even get to like seasonal stuff, because that's the crazy important, like year-round strategy that we have to be able to grow. Once people come into the brand, how easy is it for them to stay in the brand? People don't get hooked on like, unless you really just have like an astronomically amazing experience with a product. Usually you get hooked on things pretty slowly and over time, right? Just by using it a lot. The only reason we all got hooked on like Apple phones is because we just saw a lot of other people using them until we were like, all right, I'll give it a try. And then we had to learn how to use it on a daily basis. When we got our first one, it was like, how the heck does this thing work, right? But somebody out there in our ecosystem knew how to use it already. So they came over and was like, oh, you just do that. And now you're in there. Same for skincare. It would be fascinating to see if we can get people connected somehow to the brand to understand, are you using it correctly? Are you using it enough? Are you using it at the right time? Are you using it at the right times of the day? And this is, again, all psychology focused, because that's just Sarah's weird like that. But are they coming into the brand easy? And how easy is it for them to stay? Those are the two things that I want to touch on, like creative strategy wise. Then we work through and talk about, okay, are we talking enough about the simplicity? Are we talking about like how nice it is to use on your skin? Are we looking at seasonality? Those are foundational stuff that we can kind of inject both of those into. So did I answer your question? Sarah talks a lot. I don't know.
No,
I was going into
no,
like
it did.
a
It very comprehensively, it did. I think that it makes a lot of sense. I would love to even hear more of how you might achieve that latter part of, because we've talked about this, the community feel, like word of mouth. One of the things we've always said is like, when you look at our reviews, when you look at some of our internal retention metrics, like we know that if we, to your point, if we just get you in the door, if we can find the way to get you in the door, then we're in a way better spot. And for us, that's it, why we've talked to both you guys, is it's that getting in the door and how to figure that out.
Yeah. I have some ideas, but I also want to ask Colby what you think about this, because you guys have worked with, tons of different brands. You guys are an agency, so you see a lot of different things, a lot of different industries. Do you currently have like a good sense of both like get them in the door and then keep them strategies in the ad side? I have some ideas, but I want to see what your ideas are too.
Yeah, we really do focus on acquisition. So the retention side of things, or like the subscription side of things, not as much. But getting people in the door, that's definitely something that, we have been looking at with Pretty Boy, and really leaning into, as we talked about before, widening our messaging a bit, right? So I believe Max has been working to move not necessarily away from eczema, but more towards redness, right? So we can get people in there that way. I think the 4 ad buckets that we really go after, and Sarah, what you were just explaining, I was feeling like a lot of that was falling into the education aspect piece, right? Where it's like we're educating people, because it could be people that, like you said, are either switching over from another product because it stopped working, or they don't necessarily know they have eczema. They just know they have something going on with their skin, right? So we're opening up our ad account horizontally that way by finding new pockets of people that might not be purchase ready right now, right? And then the evaluation piece of just focusing on like why Pretty Boy is the skincare routine that you need to go for. I know Max has also been working on, and Max, for anybody listening that doesn't know who that is our lead creative strategist who's working with Pretty Boy. I know he's also been working on like some convenience messaging, right? So seasonality, big thing with convenience, and we're talking about travel right now, right? So how can we, like summer travel, how can we fit this into your routine for travel that way? How can we fit this into your gym bag so that you can use this in the gym locker room if you need to go about it that way? And then that two-step system, that we talked about of like making it, because everybody makes fun of men that use like 18 and ones, but it is good to have a two-step system that works because we like simplicity as well. I don't know about Kevin and Ben, but when I was trying to figure out skincare and all that, like I was trying all these different things, and somebody gave me hyaluronic acid pads, and I was streaking my face. Like I was getting red streaks on my face, and it was like burn streaks. And I was like, we're simple people. We just need simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
I love
No, we
you guys
definitely
say
been
this
there.
too. That's amazing. I don't have a
Yeah.
skincare routine. Like I feel bad. I'm the only person on this call that doesn't
Wow,
have
that's
a
a kind of
skincare
like a
routine.
humble flex when you've got such good skin.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, look at me with the pretty skin. I don't use anything. Look at you,
Okay.
idiots."
I'm over here talking about my burn streaks, and Sarah's like,
Oh
what?
my gosh. It's the lighting. It's the lighting, everybody. That cracks me up. I feel bad. I'm getting to the age where I should probably have it. Yes, I love this idea too. What we did was original, and this happens to every founder on the planet. So don't feel bad that you're like, oh, what are we doing? The more you know, right? Like you don't know what you don't know until you go through it and you find out, oh crap, we were just targeting too small of a bucket. You should niche down by industry. You should not niche down by customer.
Mhm.
Niche down your industry. Don't niche down your customer. Find industries where the product is very specific, meaning skincare for redness, right? That's great. Very niche product. But it could be literally anybody, right? He needs to have like a very, very wide amount of people that can come into the brand, at least for the acquisition side. Now, I would love to know your guys' take on this, like as founders, from Kevin and Ben. What you think about like the new creative strategies that like Colby and his team have in place, and what you guys like, what we've worked on. Does it feel any different to you from the original one? Because I know that there's quite a lot. Raise your hand if you're a founder in here. Comment and say founder if you're a founder. Founders, like yes. I feel like if you're a new founder, like you just started a brand, it could be 18 months old, it could be 5 years old. There's strategies that you use at the beginning that are just drastically different from the ones that you use as you grow. So what do you guys think of the new kind of creative strategy that you have going compared to what you did before?
Yeah, I mean, I think one too. It kind of goes back to one. You don't know what you don't know, which I love that saying. I say that too. When you can get lost in Facebook, you see like just like one thing work, and then you just hammer it. And I think with this kind of new strategy on like one, just being a little more broad and trying to get a bigger customer base when we were kind of niching, like I think that's something. Like we're a bootstrap company. Eczema started working and made sense for us. We're like, all right. And especially like 3 years ago, like, let's just hammer this. And I think now with how Facebook is too, and having to have a little more diversity in the account and not like having everything look so similar, like trying to take this like broader account in terms of messaging, but also broader account to how the actual ads and everything look within our account, I think is something that is, starting to look pretty beneficial for us and something that we weren't doing before. I think there's too much similarities in a lot of the ads we were building. And I think the biggest thing too is how like Colby's team, like when you start like tracking is so important and just like the data and like getting in the details, and something I've struggled with, Ben's pushed me on, even just in terms of how you label everything in the names. That way you can actually make incremental improvements, because like sometimes, before we weren't tracking enough. And I think that's like one of the biggest things. And you can obviously tell an ad account when something goes, crazy and like, hey, this works, let's lean in this way. But with how much the algorithms change everything, you really need to just get into the weeds of being able to track, every single thing, and tracking it and how you label it allows you to actually make, small incremental changes that add up over time. And I think that's something that has been the big change for us and how we're approaching this too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that.
That's actually one thing I was just thinking right before you said it, Kevin. I think hope has been helpful is, and I use the 300 ad example without, naming brand, just as like a industry aspect, not necessarily like what you all had done. I think what Pretty Boy, I mean, we could tell from onboarding with Pretty Boy that like there's no like hold back on the grit and pushing and doing, right? They have more documentation than 5 or 10 year companies have. Like they have all the effort into it, right? And it was following the industry standard or the industry buzz right now of like creative volume, and that's what we need to go after is creative volume and push a lot out. But exactly that, without tracking. And I think tracking at the ad level, while that can be important, focusing on every single ad can just become way too much for one person, especially when you're launching 300. So we've really tried to pull everything back and focus on making sure that we have proper naming conventions in the ads. And then we have a custom system that we've built out that we use for tagging. So then we can lump all of the data together by tags, by categories, by tags. So we can just quickly see how is this messaging angle performing against this messaging angle, and how is this brief performing against this brief, and so on and so forth. So you can start with that 1,000-foot view, keep your bearings on like, okay, what was I actually supposed to be testing? What was I supposed to be learning here? And then let me go into the individual ads and let me see what I'm doing. Let me start from the big and go into the micro versus starting in the weeds.
Oh, I feel that. I feel that in my soul. For everybody watching this, this is something Sarah's like in on all the time, which is like, stop blending your data. Stop blending your ad data. God, it drives me absolutely insane when people are like, we just dumped it all into one campaign and we have like 18,000 in there and we're just waiting to see what Meta thinks. I'm like, but you don't know though. Like you can tell that it hit, but you don't know why.
Mhm.
And that's then irrelevant. It's an irrelevant test. So to Colby's point, I use a very like strategic setup for my ads these days, not necessarily in the ad account, because I always tell people like everybody's got kind of a different setup these days. I have a preferred one, but if you're not strategic about how you set up your ad like buckets, then it's very difficult to tell what's working at what stage of the actual customer journey. So I use that what we call TEEP right now. I can't take credit for this. This was based off of a Google did like a giant research panel on like thousands and thousands of customer journeys. And it's really funny because I tried to find the article the other day so I could give it to people because everybody keeps asking me where it is. And I think they took it down. They were like, this is way too powerful. We shouldn't give this to people. And I was like, ha! I thought, okay. So anyway,
Classic
I use
Google.
I know. I'm like, Google, come on. Like I need this article. So they use a model called the TEEP model, T-E-E-P. First, like these are basically just ad buckets, the types of creative you're using. This has nothing to do within the ad account yet. It's just the types of ads that you're using. So first bucket stands for trigger event ads, which typically marketers are really good at. This is like the problem solution ad, where it's like, are you a mom that wants to lose 30 pounds? Or are you a dad that wants to like increase his golf swing? Whatever it is, right? So that's TEEP is the T is trigger event. The next E is going to be exploratory. And for you guys, I think exploration ads are my favorite because you can get really creative with them. These are the ads that you get to be just wild and you get to create content. That's why I love the exploration ad type because this is the one that before and afters fit in here. Long story like UGC fits in here. Founder ads fit kind of in this bucket where all we're doing is just kind of introducing people to the actual, oh, bye then. Peace out. All we're doing is introducing people to the brand. That's it, right? Now, this I think is also where we can start to inject some of the when that we talked about. So the bucket of like exploration, the when fits in here really well because we can start talking about some things like, man, this skincare used to work for me when I was 16, but like I'm 32 and I'm a dad now, and like my skin has changed a bunch. And now this is what's working for me. Like Pretty Boy's amazing. I love them. Like, they're one of the best I found for ABCD, whatever it is that you could do that with. The other types of one that you could do in here are also exploratory, explanatory is what I would say, right? We're explaining a lot. We're teaching a lot and educating a lot in the exploratory bucket. So when I say explaining, I mean, I don't know that every guy who is interested in skincare knows how much he needs to use. Like if you're brand new to skincare, is it like that much that I need to use? Is it like a toothpaste size? Like how much skincare am I supposed to use? I also don't know that they know like when they're supposed to use it. Is it morning and night? Is it in the middle of the day? if I go to the gym and I wash my face, should I put more on?
This
This
is
is where we
how you end up with the burn streaks from the pads that
yeah.
I was doing.
Exactly what I'm saying. And unless you have a sister or a cousin or a mom or a really good girlfriend, like who's going to teach you how to do this except for the brands?
Yeah.
So this is where I'm like, we have so much we can work with in that bucket. Sorry, go ahead, Ben. I
No,
digress.
I was just gonna say one thing that is interesting about that is like, and again, there's ways of looking at this, which is like organic social, and then there's like the
Mhm.
paid environment. And going back to
Yeah,
what Kevin said
so true.
about, I think one of the things we fell into, kind of a trap was like only relying on Facebook signals outside of the context of what signals those should be. So like the eczema example is one where it's like those ads are working. So do we just only talk about this
Mm,
because these ads work,
true.
or is that the ad that works and then the website has to be kind of something different, give them the confidence that even if you don't have. But so educate, I was saying because like the education piece for us has been an interesting one. I know Kevin has some thoughts on this too, is like it's this really weird thing where we know, and a perfect analogy for this is also what you said about confidence. So I'll talk about the eczema or the education thing first, and then the past
Mm,
conversation we had about confidence. Guys do need education, but
mm,
our educational content so far has not been what clicks. So
mm.
maybe the content's bad, or maybe the guys don't show the interest in needing this education, or they get it from somewhere else, or whatever that is. And I think like it's been a challenge for us. It's something we're investing in, working on right now. By we, I mean Kevin. Anything that I say we're investing in when it comes to like content is
Oh,
never me.
Kevin.
I'm the biggest friggin' coattail rider in the game. But like, you brought this point up in a previous conversation that I thought was really interesting. So like, no no guy wants to actually be hit with messaging about that they're not confident. So we
Yeah.
know guys want to be confident. We know guys think they're confident, even if they're not. And those self-aware ones know they put on a confident external face, and inside they have plenty of things that they're not confident about. I'm the prime example of that in many, many cases. So and this is why psychology as a whole, outside of even just e-commerce, is so fascinating to me. Is like it's finding the way to educate that doesn't feel like here is skincare 101 and this is your epidermis. And so
Yep.
Kevin has like really good ideas on like how to do that stuff. Some of them cost more money than we currently have access to. But like how do you start showing these in a way that a guy is getting
Mm,
educated but doesn't feel like he's learning, taking a skincare masterclass? When you're talking
mm.
about confidence, it's how do you show guys doing very confident things, creating an aspirational feel without being like, hey, are you a loser who's not confident in themselves ever? Here's our skincare product that'll make you be the most confident
Oh,
guy in the world. Like,
poor guy.
it, guys don't want to be talked to like that. You called it out, and I thought it was very interesting where we were like,
Mm,
yeah, we at one point used a tagline like where confidence begins. And we never did enough testing to understand if people liked it or disliked it, to be honest. We have
mm,
nothing to show for it. But when you said that, it brought me back to that time where I was like, yeah, I guess like that's kind of true. Like I probably, and like I said, like full
mm,
transparency, like I have plenty of things I'm insecure about. I wouldn't want someone just calling that out to me. It's
mm-mm.
you want to see the
Nope.
things that make you overcome those in a way that
Yeah.
feels natural. And so yeah, when you said the education thing, I was like, whoa,
Mm,
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
I think one thing on that, well, too, another thing, I just make the car look good, Ben, make sure it runs. So like he's very big part of this business.
you
Okay.
gotta
But I
have
appreciate
both.
the compliments. Yeah. Gotta have both.
Gotta have
But
both.
I think to that point, like it's interesting. And that's why it's so important to really do this deep dive into like who your customer is like for me, like somebody who's been struggling for eczema for over 10 years, like I don't even want to get skincare education. Like I'm not
Mm,
consuming that. So I think it's like, and this is for every brand now. It's like we're kind of going down this path of really trying to find what doesn't feel like an ad. How do we kind of put skincare into medium guys, understand what do they want to watch? What are
yeah.
they going to
Yeah.
actually like, take in? Because yes, they need education, like, but do they really want to view that? Is that something they're going to watch? So like,
No.
how do you kind of tailor that into
Yeah.
something they'll consume? And then like, cause I think we do a good enough job in terms of like the social proof, like, the product that works, all that, but like we need like this more top of funnel, broader type of ads that can kind of get the customer in there. And I think there's a lot of positioning of what's shown in the ad, maybe show not tell, but also like if they're into golf, like is it a golfer talking about it and doing something related to that? But then skincare is tailored in. There's a lot of different things that you have to do because it's funny. Guys say they want education, but like Ben and I aren't on Instagram consuming skincare education for two guys that have dealt with skincare a whole life.
They want education, but don't educate me, but just like educate me silently. Educate me in the background. Colby, I saw your hand up like 5 times. You were like, me? Yeah. I have an idea. Okay, you go.
First thing is, I'm going to send you a link after this in our Slack channel. Ben and Kevin, Sebastian, who you work with, Sebastian Williams, or who you've talked with, he sent me a link to an Instagram video last week or this week. It's an ad that you can obviously tell it was an organic video first. The overall feel of it, it's somebody sitting on a couch or they're laying on a couch, throwing a ball against a wall. And you can't see that. You can just see them throwing it and catching it. And they're just talking about something related to the product. And it feels very conversational. It feels very down to earth. It feels very organic, right? And I think that one thing that has stuck in my head, I don't know why this specific thing has, but there was a podcast episode that Sarah led where she was talking about like marketing to generations. And one thing was like boomers don't like to be sold to. They like to sell themselves, right? I think men can be very similar, right? Of not being necessarily sold to. And when you share that thing of like, this is where confidence starts, I think maybe a mindset shift that could go there is one thing I always tell the team is like great copywriting leads people to believe that they arrived at an idea themselves, but it doesn't necessarily directly tell them. Like in other words, like it makes people come up with the idea without directly saying what you want to. So like, how can you focus on the redness, the blackheads, the whatever it might be that's limiting their confidence and help them come to the idea that this can help them get to confidence themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got any good examples of that? Because
I do.
What do you think?
I love the fact that Colby called out that there was a specific piece of content where we see somebody just like bouncing a ball on the wall. We can't see the ball, but we can see him catch it every time.
I know the ad you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Good. If you were just a dude that just like saw this ad randomly, you would probably stop because it's a guy doing something that you probably do. Mm-hmm. This is very strange, but there's something in the brain called mirror neurons where anytime you get with another human, test this out. Anybody who's going to like a friggin' dinner or anything this week, tonight, whatever it is, check to see how many times people mirror the behaviors you're doing. Mm-hmm. So in this call, I have noticed anytime one of us does this, about 2 other people in the room do this too. Anytime anybody does
terrifying.
This, about 2 in the room will do the same thing. These are natural human behaviors. We all do it. It's just the brain basically trying to tell the other people in the room, I'm not a threat because I'm doing the same thing you're doing. Right? Touching my face, or like, you guys don't have long enough hair, but playing with my hair, whatever it is. Now, the interesting part about this is the reason the brain does that is because it's trying to get everybody to be comfortable in the same room so we can continue whatever conversation and connectivity we're trying to continue, because we might be trading something, we might be eating together, we might be like killing buffalo, whatever it is, right? So that's what the brain's trying to do. In an ad format, when it comes to brands, especially for dudes and especially in skincare, the feeling of your ad will tell them exactly what to believe about you. Mm-hmm. And you like Ben and Kevin, you and I did a ton of work on this. This is the reason why I believe heavily in what we call fluency mechanisms, right? So a fluency mechanism, for anybody who's in here watching Sarah just rant on about psychology, fluency mechanisms are basically the brain's way of creating mirror neurons. It's the brain's way of connecting with a brand when there's nothing to connect to. Brands are very static. They're very medicalized. They're super sterile. Like we curate these brands down to the bolts, right? Like they're so perfect, which I personally believe is kind of a detriment because it doesn't give us anything to connect to. A guy throwing a ball against a wall, I can connect to that. I know exactly what that feels like because I've done it before. This is the reason why Liquid Death, I bring them up constantly, does as well as they do because they feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. They feel like a brand that has confidence because they just say, we don't give a shit all the time.
So I want to interject there because I think you're talking about something really interesting, and this is something near and dear to Kevin's heart. And I think You guys have probably worked with brands of various different sizes. Like we've already said, we're self-funded, we're bootstrapped. Like every dollar that we have basically just goes into like running the company. And we're still waiting for that like insanely viral pop. We've had a couple different ones. We're on like great growth trajectories, but it's still like tight, it's tight.
Yeah.
So Liquid Death, awesome example to use. Totally agree with you. Liquid Death is they have a ton of money, good
They do.
investors. And so I think like one of the things that we're working on now, and especially I don't know if you've paid attention to any of like Preston from Chubby's, like we've talked to him in the past, and there's a lot of stuff going on this like 95/5 rule and what you're talking about, like the fluencies and for smaller people who want to implement this type of stuff and both a rolling creative strategy with a focus on paid, but also a creative strategy with a focus on like organic and just being memorable. I think one of the things that's just really tough is how to create those moments in a way that not only does feel natural. So sure, like Kevin could go lay on the ground and throw the ball and talk about like our products, and that would probably work. But like when you talk about the website, when you talk about some of these first interactions,
Mhm.
when we're talking about all the topics specific to our industry and male consumers,
Yeah.
it's something we've been really working on. I don't know if either of you have the answer. It's just like how to start getting that at a level that is truly reflective, a level of, I hesitate to say production, but of quality being put together that reflects what you're talking about. Because like Liquid Death, what they do, it's awesome. But, it does. And even though I know they do it bootstrap, like I know they have their internal facility and they have creators inside who are really good at doing this, it still is an investment sometimes. And so I don't know if you
Oh
have
yeah.
any good examples or anything comes to mind of like how to, for us at the stage we're at, start to be able to do that because like it's definitely a challenge sometimes. It's felt
Oh, 100%.
difficult.
I have all the thoughts on this, but I'll give you guys a high level. I feel like you and I, we all need to just like get in a room and just like brain dump because I love these conversations anyways. These are my favorite ones to do. Anybody wants to brain dump with Sarah, just come on over. How, right? How do we create a brand personality? Is technically what we're asking. It's like, how do we make our brand feel a certain, how does anybody make anything feel a certain way? The easiest way to think about this, and we talked a little bit about this when we were like looking into frequency or fluency mechanisms for you guys, trying to figure out what character should we put at the top? Do we want a character at the top? What type of creative strategy would we build around that? All of this comes down to what do you want to feel like? You have to decide first, what do you
Yeah.
want to feel like first? And then we could put a strategy in place. If you want to be edgy, cool, let's do a ton of edgy stuff. If you want to be nice and kind and like really sweet, cool, let's put in nice, kind, really sweet. There's a reason why Skittles did not take off, but Old Spice did because they felt much like more intense on the emotional
Hmm.
side. Skittles is just kind of like there. Even though their marketing now is just bizarre, like they had a while where like people were growing Skittles on their face and then they take them off and eat them, and it was like, what is this? I'm
Whoa.
uncomfortable. That's an intense feeling, but they literally tried to connect disgust with candy. What a weird
Hmm.
connection that they were
Yeah.
trying to make.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop that. You guys, again, we need to figure out what you want to feel like. What do you want to make people feel when they get close to you? So if you're a founder and you're like, what the hell does that even mean then? The closest we can get is pick somebody in your life who feels like the brand you want to create and emulate your feeling off of them. So if I was going to create Colby as a brand, very, very easily, I would 100% smart. Everything would just be real high level.
I
So
was going
all
to
of the
say
language would be elevated.
nice.
But I would give him kind of a Texas drawl because that's
North
Colby. Like,
North Carolina, but I'll take Texas. Yeah.
Texas, like Southern drawl. Like I would give him that kind of language. I would also make him incredibly polite, but I would make him very definitive. Like the language that we would use for Colby is very different than the language that I would use for Ben, right? Or for Kevin. Kevin's feeling is different than Colby's is. And you can tell this between the people that you already interact with. So the very first thing, figure out what you want to make people feel when they come in contact with you. And then the second thing is to like, okay, now how do we represent that visually?
Yeah.
That's great. And I think from a process perspective, because Ben, I feel like part of what you're asking as well is like, there's so many objects, so many opportunities, like how do we know what to do first? And like, how do we roll that out is I would look at it just from like same way we would look at like optimizing processes as an agency, right? Like what gets what drives the most revenue, what happens the most frequently. Like we're probably going to change something with our monthly creative audit process before we're going to change our onboarding process, because we do the monthly audit more frequently and it's more impactful than the onboarding, right? So I would say like look into, like obviously Facebook ads would be a first area because that's touching the most, it's getting the most impressions, right? It's getting the most reach. And then like where to go from there. Maybe it's a single landing page to test something out and then just continue to expand it, right? What's your email audience compared to your website visitors compared to your so on and so forth, and just kind of go based off of that. And really like just focus on one thing at a time and have really clear timeline or project for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think to Ben's question though, like the one thing that's tougher, like when you use Liquid Death as an example, somebody that's, well-funded and, they have these crazy campaigns that, obviously cost a lot of money. And we're not saying here, like you just need your iPhone 100%. Like we agree with that. I think for us, sometimes it becomes like a challenge. Like I've gotten a lot better with and good at the founder content and gotten better being more comfortable on camera and stuff. But we know that there needs to be like this emotional pool of like who we want to be and how to show that and creating that engaging content that fits who our customer is, that they're willing to, they actually want to consume it. And how do you kind of start, even if it's just with an iPhone, trying to create that kind of content if you feel like, hey, you're getting better, but might not be as like capable to get that content? Because we do also believe there's the brand, I do think needs to align with the quality of the product. And if there's a disconnect there, then it does, then that doesn't work either. And I'm not saying like iPhone content is bad. Like you can make that good, but like there's the quality of the creation using the iPhone content, whether you're funny, the personality, whatever the concept of the video. And we're trying to figure out that, how can we get that type of content that, pulls on that emotion and fits who our customer is, without having a huge budget or maybe limited talent to do that.
I think it works really well for you guys though, honestly. I like the kind of iPhone style content for you guys because you want your brand to be attainable. We're not looking to be $150 like products. We're looking to be like the type of product where you can get it even if you don't have thousands of dollars to spend on skincare.
No, for sure. I think what I'm not saying like we're all for the iPhone content, but there is like you can make an iPhone content that somebody wants to consume and an iPhone content that they don't want to consume.
I think if I take a picture, I'm always hypercritical of it. But if I see somebody else's same exact picture, I'm not as hypercritical of it. But I also understand what you're saying. So, I mean, I think you guys make great content on your own, right? I mean, I think because you're making it, it's a lot easier to be critical of it because you created it. So like you remember exactly when you forgot a word or when you did this or that, right? I think shooting the content from your perspective, especially when the brand owner is the target persona, is so good. We have a company we work with that sells like a torch tip to light your fire for your grill. I would never consume their ads because it's very slow pacing. But they pop off. They perform very well when they do founder ads. If you ever are at a point where you don't feel like you should be making the content or need to pass it off, we could always have a side chat on that, but something like Backstage, like finding a local actor, not even UGC creator, but finding a local actor that's not a famous actor that's trying to grind that won't cost as much, things like that. There could always be solutions to create content outside of just either influencer or UGC or the more expensive stuff that way.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Hey, I actually have a question. I don't know. Are we hard stopping here in 2 minutes?
We were supposed to hard stop. Does anybody have a hard stop? We could go slightly over if we need to. Hopefully everybody's like available for that. We have a lot of people on this call. Hi, everybody that's here. But yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for just listening to all of us ramble. But hopefully there's something of value in here for someone. And I think maybe this could be a good time piece of that. Because we've covered so much, one thing that I would love both of your perspectives. Colby, Max, we've talked to you about this. Sarah, I think we've talked to you about this. We have any creative course you take, any creative strategies you talk to, you guys have talked about this. Golden Nug reviews. Everyone talks about them. Everyone goes, go read your reviews, pull things out of them. If you go read the reviews on our site, there are some like Colby, your team has said like, hey, like these are different than other ones we've seen. Like there is some emotionally
Mhm.
charged, like very clear. They meet the definition, every definition I've ever seen of a golden nug. We have emails that do this. The whole, I literally never send companies emails, but I have to send you this because what I experience from using this product. We have yet to find a way to implement reviews productively into our ad
Mhm.
funnel, into content organically. We have recorded customer testimonial calls. Every single Barry has said this. We were on the phone with some guy last week. He's like, just throw all your raw customer testimonial videos into the ad account, and like I guarantee one of them is gonna just go nuts. Never has
Mhm.
happened for us. Um, how do you? I would love to know how you guys look at Golden Nug reviews and a process you use to break those down. And if that question is too long, then I just trapped you guys into having us on again. But I think that it is something I just am so curious about because when I read some of these things, I'm like, I mean, how are you telling me that there's like nothing we've been able to crack in this way? And maybe it's industry specific, who knows? But that was one question I wanted to get out there. But if we do not have enough time for that, I completely understand.
Colby, you want to take it or you want me to go first?
You start, and I'm actually going through their Slack channel right now, looking at the reviews that they've shared to read them.
Interesting. All right. So I have two schools of thoughts on reviews. I have found there are some brands in particular that can run a review and it will just crush every time because their customers are very sensitive to customer reviews. They want to see a lot of people that have used it. This, anecdotally, I need to get data on this, but anecdotally, I have noticed it's predominantly female-based brands, not male-based brands.
Oh, let me
Now,
actually, sir, sorry to cut you off. I want to get one
yeah,
more piece of information there for you to know.
yeah. Okay.
Post
I'm ready.
purchase survey,
Hmm.
customer reviews, number one buying decision indicator
Yep.
for us.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, again, it's like, this is just like, it's a funny
Yep.
thing. So go on, female
It
focus, but
makes
you said that. I was like, oh,
110%. Yeah, it makes sense that the guys are using the reviews as the reason they're purchasing. That's not technically the reason they are watching ads, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the
totally.
ad is a different like level of customer journey than on your website. I'm now on the product page. I'm now scrolling all the way down to the review on the product. That's like what 12 steps in. Like you're now all the way down into the ecosystem. So it makes sense that they're using them that way. But yeah, from what I can tell, just from like I said, from anecdotally from what I've seen, most of the time reviews on ads for dude type stuff, they have different results than they do for women. So to use them on ads, if you haven't really seen them work in the past, I would honestly take them and use them like similarly to the way that, like I said, Old Spice kind of used them, where it was just like they kind of blanketed statemented. That's not a word,
Yeah.
but they took all of the reviews that people really liked about their specific body wash, and then they injected it into their character. They made that
Yeah. Yeah.
dude
Yeah. Yeah.
all the reviews. So you guys can do the same. Instead of just taking a review, copy and pasting it, take the core message of that review. If the review literally is, I never write any review for any company ever, but I had to write one for you, let's take that and make it a core message somewhere on the site where it says, our customers never write reviews about any company, but they love us this much, and then list a bunch of them,
Mm,
right?
yeah. I like
So
that idea.
instead of taking the reviews themselves and copying pasting, especially if they didn't work in the ad account, the best way to use them is just to inject them into other places. That's probably what
Yeah.
I'd start with. Colby, anything to add on that?
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting here telling myself what I'm about to say might be contradictory to what we were just talking about earlier with organic content. But in a Foxhole Founders call, I think it was earlier this week or it was last week, we were talking about something similar where we were talking about UGC for males versus UGC for females, and how it's a lot harder to find UGC male creators. But also sometimes it can seem like males aren't as receptive to UGC content. And that could be because, there's a lot more opportunity for female UGC creators. They're better on camera, et cetera. But also what we're looking at is males being more receptive to influencers because they have the authority, they have the clout, they have what people are wanting to go after or achieve. Like if you're a golfer and you know that person a good golfer, you're likely to watch them versus just a random UGC creator. You know what I mean? So it could be the vehicle of delivering, kind of like Sarah's saying, the vehicle of delivering the testimonial as well. Maybe it's using that to kind of like guide what an influencer says or just what your overall creative is as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those testimonials too are more. Somebody actually just commented and said like it can work more for your middle of funnel. Yeah. So for your evaluation phase ads, where it's like now I'm interested in the brand, I've seen you enough times to know you exist. Now I need to understand how many people like you.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that we were trying to sell with a kind of, I hate the funnel, but like middle of funnel strategy.
Yeah.
Is what we're trying to do. That's
That
probably what
makes
happened.
sense.
So that's a good
Okay, I'm
question though.
glad.
'Cause, yeah.
Thank you for thank you for indulging us.
We appreciate y'all coming on. It's been good.
This was so lovely. Okay. For anybody that wants to check out what Pretty Boy is doing, how you guys are growing, what you're doing with your ecosystem, where can they find you guys? Do you guys have like a website or something you want us to plug?
We do have a website, guys. No, you can find us at you can find us at yoprettyboy.com, or any of our socials are yo.prettyboy. But yeah,
Yay! Go follow
check
this
us
guy.
out. Growing quick, great products. So.
Yeah. You guys are good founders. I just like that you think about it, because a lot of times I think it just gets so hard to run a business. You're just like putting out fires all day long, but you guys think about it deeply. So
we will
it's
say,
awesome.
and I've been on the mental breakdown part of this. That's why it's good to have two founders, because we pick each other up. But like Ben has been good of late. You gotta, like, for the founders out there, like, look at some of your successes. Like, sometimes it is a hard business, and sometimes you're just like, God, we're doing horrible, but we are growing really quick. So it's, I feel like founders kind of just look at it as like, God, the next stage, and like if we can't get there right away, you're like, you're doing horrible. But
you gotta
that's
time
why
your panic attacks
I've been
separately.
appreciating Ben as of late, because like we switch off in these different mindsets.
We definitely do. And we can't seriously, I mean, thank both of you guys enough. Obviously, Sarah, you've been just like
It's so fun.
amazing. It's been so cool to talk to you, and we know that you've taken a lot of time to like really guide us along this path. And Colby, you and your team obviously have been amazing. Foxwell was great for connecting us. So I think the best part of this industry, this space, is like people are very generous, and Kevin and I are always looking forward to when we can pay it forward. So if anyone's listening wants to hit us up with a question, we definitely owe some people some favors based on all the favors we've been given. So thank you guys for everything you do.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great working
That's
with you.
amazing. Colby, where can people find you if they want to see what you're doing at Brighter Click?
Yeah, I think this is going out on LinkedIn. So if you can find me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there. Trying to get more active on Twitter, Colby Flood on both of them. And then brighterclick.com is our agency website if you are a brand that's looking for acquisition or creative strategy marketing.
This is so great. You guys can follow me if you just want to hear me ramble about psychology at Sarah Leminger, anywhere you consume content. Thanks for this. This is lovely. I love these creative strategy sessions. We need to do these more often. So thank you guys.
Hey,
Thanks,
we're happy
everybody.
to. Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya. Have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,